tell ourselves the truth, to be honest with our people. And in that regard, I'm reminded of the famous words by one of the revolutionary teachers that I have been inspired by, Amilcar Cabral, the leader of the liberation struggle in what was called Guinea-Bissau. And he told us that we must hide nothing from the masses of our people. We should tell no lies. We should expose lies wherever they are told. We should mask no difficulties, mistakes, failures. And we should claim no easy victories. So, thinking about the theme for this year's Kwanzaa, when we think about what it means to remember, we have to also look back and see that those in the past, previous generations, and I'm just talking about maybe 1 or 2 generations prior to the one that we're in now, many of our people wanted to build an alternative. Whereas what we tend to see now is a resignation to the world as it is. We just want to blacken it or make it a bit more African-centered. So we don't want to change the world. We want to just carve out our space in someone else's world. We want to sit at a table that someone else has laid. Many of us have given up on the freedom dreams of our ancestors because we lack the courage, and sometimes it's because we're tired, because we've seen many of the losses, we've seen many of the sacrifices, and some of us, are afraid because we just want to live, we just want to survive, we just want to get on. We want to have a bit of enjoyment because this struggle might seem too long, too harsh. But this is the difference between us and other people who have been oppressed, and we see gaining some kind of strength in the world. Because we forget. We are prone to forgetting. And in our forgetfulness, we show and display an ingratitude to our ancestors and to previous generations who came before us. So think about those who paved the way here in Bristol. How do we remember them? How do we honour them? Do we even know their names? Do our children know their names? Who were the people that helped to create a path for you personally? How do we come together to institutionalize a memory, a re-memory process as to who some of these people are? And Karenga advises that we ask ourselves, how do we as a people honour our role as moral and social vanguard? Moral and social vanguard. So that means that we don't, as Sister Jendai has said, we don't sit at the back of the room, sit at the back of the bar, sit quiet, wait for someone to ask us. It means that we're up front. And even if we're not up front, we're strategically leading from the back or the side or wherever. But we are designing the landscape of our operations. We're not leaving things to chance, we're not begging, we're not pleading, we're not asking for acceptance, we're not asking for recognition, we are just taking it because we know who we are. We know who we've been, and we know how low we are today, despite so-called technological advancement. Some of us can't match the building that was done by our parents or even our grandparents, who didn't even have near enough as opportunities as many of us have today. Why? What was it they had? What was it they knew that we have forgotten? Because it's not that we don't know, because everything that they know or knew, we know, because they are in us. They live through us. We have those memories that we need to call on. But we have to see ourselves as moral and social vanguard, because that is our duty. That is our historic mission. And that is part of the purpose of Kwanzaa and the theme that has been chosen by Kwanzaa's founder, to reimagine and remake the world. Now that is a civilizational quest. What does it mean to remake the world? I mean, when many of us were torn from our motherland, we didn't just lose a passport or even just a national identity. We lost a world. And we lost our place in the world. So to remake the world needs to turn it what? Right back the other way. Who were we before enslavement? Who were we before colonialism? Who were we before neo-colonialism? That is our starting point. But we won't know that if we have an incorrect view of our story. And unfortunately, what the experience of the Maangamizi, which is a Kiswahili term for the African Holocaust, has done, as Cabral, one of my teachers, has said, is it has reduced us to being footnotes in the annals of European story. And our civilizational task as a people, which we must inculcate into our children, who are our young warriors and warrioresses, is to remake the world. But we cannot leave this just to them. Each generation does what? Out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or do what? Betray it. So we have to question ourselves. How worthy are we to even stand on some of the shoulders that we're standing on? How much are we fulfilling that mission? Because it's not a new mission, it's an intergenerational mission. Each generation just adds to it. They might modernize it a bit, they might change it up a bit, but it's an intergenerational vision to do with the rememberment, meaning what? To put back together of our people. That unification process that enabled us to create kingdoms and civilizations. That process of Pan-African community regeneration and nation building. And one of the things that many of us who are Pan-Africanists and students of Pan-Africanism are taught is that Pan-Africanism began in the diaspora. It didn't. It began in Africa. All those efforts that our people made to develop civilization, culture, nation build, empire, kingdoms, and polities were Pan-African because it involved people coming together to meet their social, economic, political, and cultural and spiritual needs. And we shaped nations on the basis of how we could live that out so that we could guarantee our people's collective security and survival. And right now, even though we have Africa as a continent, we have an Africa that is still controlled by our historical oppressors and their children, and the institutions and the corporations that they have left behind. So we might have African heads of state, but what is the model of governance that many of our states in Africa and the Caribbean and in other places in the black world, what is the model of governance that we're working to? The Westminster model or Westphalian model of parliamentary democracy. So when we talk about Ma'at, and Ubuntu in terms of African conceptualizations and ethical ideals as to how we order our societies, how we build culture, institutions, how we develop relationships amongst ourselves. Where do we see, which society, including modern day Kemet, do we see Ma'at being practiced? Which society, can anyone name one? I mean, where it's across the board. It's legalized, it's institutionalized. Where do we see it?
In the future.
In the future. Well, we could say, on one level, South Africa claims, it can claim Ubuntu, because South Africa has enshrined Ubuntu, the Nguni Bantu concept of humanity, African humanism, basically, and it has enshrined, the people of South Africa have enshrined or ensured that Ubuntu is enshrined in their constitution. So that is a start, but that's just one example that I know of. I don't know of any others, and of course, this is a time when we're teaching each other and we're learning from each other.